Hello, this is an information session about study abroad through the Evergreen State College. My name is Bryn Smith, and I'm the Assistant Director for International Programs and Services here at the Evergreen State College. So with that, we will dive right into the content. All right, so here we are at Evergreen Study Abroad 101 info session. So the Office of International Programs and Services is located in the library on the second floor. The Office of International Programs and Services is a part of Inclusive Excellence in Student Success, which is room 2153. And as you can see, my phone number is here, and you can contact me or just study abroad in general here at studyabroad@evergreen.edu. Okay, so if we were live, I might ask you, why would you want to study abroad, especially as an Evergreen student? But since we're not live, I'll just give you some examples of what students have told me. So students have said that they want to study abroad so they can gain cross-cultural skills, intercultural communication skills, to learn how to be a bit more independent. Also, students who maybe have already gained a lot of independence, they're really wanting to explore content that they're currently interested in, but in a new environment. So let's say you're really interested in environmental studies, but you now want to examine it more in a tropical environment. So there are lots of reasons that students want to study abroad. Sometimes students want to do heritage seeking opportunities. So maybe their family is from a certain place in the world, and they've heard a lot about it. And now they want to go there for themselves and have their own experience. Like I said, lots of reasons. Language learning is also a great reason. If you're a student who's been learning a language, then I highly encourage you to go and live in a place where that language is predominantly spoken. So those are just a few of the reasons. There's many more beyond that. So with that, we will continue forward. All right, so as for the steps for study abroad, first, you want to learn about the possibilities. So there are different types of study abroad programs. There's also different places in the world where you can study abroad, and you can also explore through different academic paths. Next, you want to review some important guidelines because they may impact your planning process going forward. Next, you really want to reflect on what your needs and wants are for your study abroad experience. So that can really help you to narrow down your search. And you can do this independently and or with the Office of International Programs and Services. I would actually recommend doing both of them. So sometimes the study abroad process can seem really overwhelming because there are so many options. So I'll show you here in a bit where you can find a list of guiding questions to help you narrow down your search. Next, you want to thoroughly understand the cost of your study abroad program and also some options for funding it. Next, you want to complete your application and all of the administrative processes, both externally. Maybe you're going on a third-party provider program or consortium program. They're going to have requirements you need to do. Also, Evergreen will have requirements that you need to do. So you need to work on both of those. All right, so next, once you get approved for study abroad, you will continue to prepare so that you can have a productive, safe, and fun experience. There are a lot of things that can go into living in another country. And so I want you to kind of see this time, the prepare period, as a part of your study abroad experience. It helps you to figure out how you're going to navigate these different processes in different places. Next, you will actually get to do your study abroad experience, so the time where you are away from the college. And then lastly, you will return and reflect on your experience, and hopefully you'll apply some of the new learning into other contexts. All right, so that's a brief overview of the steps. Now we'll dive a little bit more in depth and look at them. All right, so as I mentioned, there are different types of study abroad programs. Evergreen students can study abroad through 4 types: Evergreen faculty-led academic programs, exchange programs, consortium programs, and students can do an ILC or an INT in a study abroad context. So ILC, if you're not familiar with it, stands for Independent Learning Contract, and INT stands for Internship Learning Contract. And we'll discuss all of these here just in a minute. Okay, so Evergreen faculty-led programs. As you may or may not be aware, Evergreen is kind of unique in many, many cool ways. And one of those is that Evergreen has, rather than just individual courses, although they do have individual courses, they have larger programs. So these are really well suited for a travel component. So what will happen is the program may be a year long. It's, 2-3 quarters long. Maybe it's just that 1 quarter of travel, but oftentimes it's more than 1 quarter. So you've had some time to really dig into the content here on campus beforehand, and then you have your travel experience where you kind of get your hands dirty with the content. So it's really well equipped for a travel component. So for spring 2022, we are offering 2 faculty-led programs, one to Greece and Italy, where the students will explore archaeological sites, architecture, and visual arts of Greece and Italy. And the other one is called our Paris Muse program. This is an opportunity for students to explore the French-speaking language and cultures, different arts, both social and intellectual history. Students will look at films, lectures, music, creative workshops, and really kind of explore more about what makes Paris special. All right, for exchange programs. So Evergreen has what we call sister schools. And so these are foreign institutions that we have partnerships with, where students from Evergreen can go there to study for a semester or for a full academic year. Meanwhile, a student from that institution can also come to Evergreen to study here for a quarter or 2 or 3 quarters. So it's a really great way to open up access for both sides. Both parties pay their regular tuition to their home institutions. So an Evergreen student will pay their Evergreen tuition to Evergreen, but then be able to go to the foreign institution, and any fees or any tuition would be waived at the foreign institution. So here's a list: China, Denmark, and then 2 programs in Japan where students can study abroad through an exchange program. And these programs may be competitive. It depends on the year. It depends on the number of student applicants we have. But generally, each of these programs will accept 2 full-year students or 4 single semester students, and that's per year. All right, so now we'll move on to the consortium partnerships. So Evergreen has formal partnerships with several outside providers. So these providers are academic organizations that create, provide, and operate study abroad programs in places around the world. There are over 200 locations where students can go on these consortium programs, so it can get kind of overwhelming, but that's why we have the list of questions to ask yourself so that you can start to narrow down your search a bit. These consortium programs might range from going to a traditional university in another country to perhaps even just being at a study center for a very specific discipline in Costa Rica, let's say. So there's lots of different options through this type of study abroad program. And along the right side, you will see our list of partners. We have a lot of partners with a lot of different programs. So this can be a really great option for students. Next, and lastly, so we're talking now about the independent learning or individual learning contracts and internships. So this is a great option for students who are coming to the end of their studies, their undergraduate studies. This is a way for you, once you've gotten really interested in a topic, you can really dive into it and really design your own, essentially your own syllabus, along with a faculty advisor or a faculty sponsor. Together, you'll decide what your learning goals are, what materials you'll use to get there. So you can do this while you're a student here on campus at Evergreen, and you can also do it in another country. So if that's you, if you're doing it in another country, then you would also work with the Office of International Programs and Services because it would be considered a study abroad program. Oh, so here's some examples of past contracts. So as an HIV/AIDS educator in Ethiopia, music of the Kora in the Gambia, working with Burmese refugee camps in Thailand, lots of different options. All right, so like I said, there's some important guidelines that you'll want to review before you really settle into a program. So we'll briefly go over them. So students who are not in good academic standing may not be eligible for some options. Students who have significant disciplinary history at Evergreen may also not be eligible for some options. Also, and this is really important, students must have participated in at least 1/4 of interdisciplinary study before they can study abroad. So basically what that means is that you had to finish at least 1/4 at Evergreen before you'll be permitted to study abroad. This isn't necessarily the case for a transfer student. A transfer student can petition for an exception to this. Learning contracts and internship contracts are each limited to a maximum of 48 credits total over the course of your studies at Evergreen. So that includes whether it's a study abroad context or right here at home or another location. So for consortium study, this is also limited to 1 academic year in total. So you could do 1 full academic year with the same program, or you could do 1 semester in 1 location, and then maybe the next year you do 1 semester in another location, but overall 1 academic year of consortium study. It's not permitted for students to go beyond 1 year. This is less of a rule and more of just something to keep in mind, but students first apply through Evergreen to study abroad based on their program type, and then we'll let you know whether or not you're initially approved. Once you're initially approved, that doesn't mean that you're good to go and you can jump on your plane. We also require that you complete other pre-departure requirements in order to receive full authorization and registration for study abroad. Lastly, non-approved program participation is possible through a leave of absence. So what that means is that if none of the programs or offerings that we provide fit your needs, you can talk with me and we can talk about you taking a leave of absence from Evergreen and then transferring those credits back later. I wouldn't recommend this option, but if it comes to that, we can talk about it. All right, so now for cost structures. This is generally the first question I get. So Evergreen faculty-led programs, students pay their Evergreen tuition just like they normally would, plus there's a program fee that includes the cost of travel and anything else that's included in the program. There are also additional estimated expenses. This varies a lot by program and also varies by person. So some program fees are higher because maybe they include more things, maybe they include all of the housing and most of the food and most excursions. Some program fees might be lower because perhaps they provide less things, and so then the estimated additional expenses would be more expenses. It really varies on the type of program and what's included. So it's important that you understand what's included, what's not included, and then kind of what the difference is. And lastly, there's a $400 admin fee for an Evergreen faculty-led program. All right, so for exchange programs, you would pay your normal Evergreen tuition and then the cost of living in the host community. So you pay your cost of living here in Olympia or in Tacoma, or wherever it is that you live. But in this case, you pay the cost of living in your host country. There's also a $100 study abroad fee and also, of course, any travel expenses. So for the consortium programs, instead of paying, this is the only program type where you don't pay Evergreen tuition. Instead, you pay a program provider fee. So that's set by the program provider, not by Evergreen. Evergreen then does require you to pay a $425 consortium enrollment fee. also a $100 study abroad fee, and any additional estimated expenses. Again, this varies by person and it also varies by program. Similar to the faculty-led programs, some programs, the fee includes a lot of things in that. Some of them don't include that much. So it really depends on the program, and it's important to dig in and figure out what's included, what's not. So what's my estimated budget? Lastly, for ILCs or INTs, students have to pay their Evergreen tuition and also the cost of living in their host community. So one of the cool things about this option is that you really get to design your own program and figure out where you're going to live, what you're going to eat, how you're going to get around. You really design it on your own. It's very independent. And then there's also a $100 study abroad fee. All right, so you might be thinking, now, how am I going to fund this? So one of the cool things is that Evergreen allows you to take all of your regular aid on these programs. So your financial aid remains uninterrupted for all study abroad, unless you choose to take a leave of absence. And then you, of course, wouldn't receive aid from Evergreen because you wouldn't be an Evergreen student. Additionally, we'll work with you to develop an estimated budget that includes what you think your estimated additional expenses will be, so that financial aid can figure out how to perhaps increase your financial aid package if that's what you need. Also, there are scholarships available specifically for study abroad students. Evergreen offers some of its own study abroad scholarships. This ranges from about $1,000 to $2,500. There's also the Gilman Award. This is a federal award, and it's up to $5,000 for a study abroad experience. We've had a lot of Evergreen students receive this award, and that's because Evergreen students are resourceful, and we also work pretty hard to help them get those funds. The Critical Language Scholarship is a fully funded summer study abroad program that's focused on learning a critical language. Again, this is also a federal award. So if you're really interested in language learning, specifically a language that's probably underrepresented or it's less likely to be learned and taught in schools, check this one out, come talk to me, it's pretty cool. All right, also the Boren Award. This can be really great for students who are doing some independent research, so maybe like an ILC. At the lowest amount, it's $8,000. At the highest amount, it's $25,000, and the amount you receive varies by duration. Again, the Boren Award is also a federal award. Additionally, consortium providers often have their own scholarships. So when you're looking at those programs, be sure to check to see what scholarships they offer and which ones you think you might be eligible for. And in addition to that, there's more out there. We have information on our website, and I'm sure there's more even beyond that. So although study abroad does typically come with additional expenses, there are additional resources to help pay for it. Also, I'd just like to say that students have said, although it does cost extra money, most students have said it was worth the cost. All right, so here's where I talked about really reflecting on your needs and wants. So you can go to our website, evergreen.edu/studyabroad/choose-right-program. And there's lots and lots of questions to help you narrow down your search, to help you figure out what it is you really need and want from your program. So there are questions about what you are looking for in academics, for your health and wellness, for your personal interests and situations, for your financial situation, and also your identities. All of these things are important to think about when you're deciding on a program to participate in, because not every program is going to be the right fit for every student. It's really important that each student takes the time to think about, what their needs are and how the study abroad program can best fit that. Okay, as far as the application process, this varies by program type. All of the program types do require the student to complete an intent to study abroad Microsoft form. This form takes about 5 minutes. It really is just telling us what program you intend to do, and then asks you to accept some terms and conditions. Evergreen also has additional requirements for exchange programs, for consortium programs, and if you're doing an ILC or an INT. So for any program, you're going to want to visit our website here, again, at evergreen.edu/studyabroad, and then on the apply page. For consortium programs, applicants can do the provider's application and Evergreen's application at the same time. So yes, that's true. There are going to be 2 applications. You need to do an Evergreen application and the provider's application. So like I said, you can do them at the same time, and Evergreen will not approve you to participate in that program until you've finished the Evergreen side of things. So there can be advantages to doing them at the same time so that you can kind of, because sometimes the questions might be similar for both applications. So it could be good to work to, you know, kill 2 birds with 1 stone, but just keep in mind that Evergreen's not going to approve it until you finished the Evergreen application. And lastly, I just want to point out that it's really important that you start the application at least a few weeks prior to the deadline. Some applications require recommendations, essays, collecting other materials, maybe official transcripts. So it's important that you get looking at it early and that you make a plan for yourself. Some of them, you know, aren't very extensive, but some of them can be. All right, so for the deadlines, the deadline depends on when it is that you want to study abroad. So if you want to study abroad in the fall quarter or semester, or for the full academic year starting in the fall, you would need to apply by the dates listed here. So exchange programs are February 15th and March 15th. Consortium is March 1st. And then study abroad ILCs or INTs, it's July 15th. So I won't run through all of these because you can see them. You can also go ahead and look at them on the website to see what the deadlines are. But just know that I would recommend you give yourself about 6 to 9 months in advance before your program is to start, when you need to be looking at deadlines and scholarships and all of that kind of stuff. It can take time. All right, that is it. There's a lot more that I'm sure you're thinking about or that you might have questions about. So I encourage you to go and check out our website, again, evergreen.edu/studyabroad. If you have any questions, email us at studyabroad@evergreen.edu. And I highly encourage you to set up an appointment, an advising appointment with us. So you can do that through the bookings app. So if you go to the advising website, so I think it's evergreen.edu/advising, you can go to the bookings app and set up an appointment that way. You can also just email us and ask for an appointment that way. That totally works too. Great. So with that, I just want to say that, you know, we're transitioning hopefully back into a world where international travel is possible. And I just want to encourage you to be optimistic about that, but also be cautious and, as always, be flexible. So thank you for joining us.